He married her for a gray mule with steady hooves, yet one night's silence felt heavier than all his empty saddlebags. Dust rolled off the high chaparral, turning fence rails the color of old bone. Amos Keene, 32, pockets thin as parchment, watched his last steer shuffle into Mitchum's pen, sold for half its weight. The bank wanted payment, the well wanted wind, and hope wanted coin he did not own. Only a crippled fence and a thirsting peach orchard still called him boss. That evening, a freight wagon crawled up the track. On its bench sat Clara Vale, pale hair wrapped in a faded blue scarf. White cane rested across her lap. Clouded eyes faced wind without blinking. Behind the wagon plodded a stone-gray mule, shoulders broad, step unwavering. The animal looked like reliability turned into muscle and hide. Clara spoke first, voice low, calm, certain. Her uncle had died, leaving her nothing but the mule and the freight wagon. She sought land where silence grew thick enough to live inside. In exchange for marriage, she would gift the mule, keep the wagon as dowry chest, ask no more than a roof and the smell of orchard bloom come spring. Amos eyed the mule, shoulders built for plow traces, hooves splayed for rocky soil. One beast like that could turn his orchard rose, haul water, maybe barter foals. He weighed vow against need and found need heavier. They signed names on ledger paper by lantern light. No preacher, only Mitchum and the wind as witness. Amos slipped a ring he'd once pawned, now reclaimed, onto her finger. It turned loosely, catching candle glow before settling. Clara traced the metal with her thumb, nodding as though rings spoke in braille. She stepped from wagon, cane tapping until boot touched porch plank. Inside, Amos offered the single bedroom. She shook her head, choosing the wagon berth for the night, cane crossing the door like polite refusal. He watered the mule, feeling its steady breath fog the trough. Moonlight brushed Clara's profile at the wagon flap. Listening, learning the yard by echo. No words floated across the gap, yet the hush felt deliberate, as if she stitched new boundaries with silence thread. Midnight draped the ranch. Amos lay in the sagging bed alone, lamp doused, ears tuned for wagon boards creaking. Nothing but coyotes argued over distant carrion. Questions paced his ribs. Why would blindness seek hard land? Why grant a mule to a stranger? What currency did she really want? Pre-dawn chill shook cabin walls. He rose, coffee hissed on stove. Outside, Clara already stroked the mule's neck, palms moving slow, memorizing shape of trust. She turned at his steps, though eyes saw nothing, her face aligned with his precisely. She asked for a bucket, voice more sunrise than sound. He placed tin against her palm, fingers brushing, skin warm despite cold air. They walked to the well, her cane flicking stones aside, feet finding rhythm within his shorter stride. At the crank wheel, she let him lift first, then took the rope herself, pulling water with muscle that belied soft hands. Bucket brimmed, sloshed, caught first rays breaking over chaparral. In rising light, Amos noticed flecks of dried blood on her cane tip. Old journeys, rough roads. He swallowed apology he did not owe but wanted to give. Back at the porch, she poured half the bucket on the mule's flank, washing dust streaks until hide glistened silver. The animal leaned into her hip, breath slow. She rested cheek against its neck, eyes closed, lips shaping words too small for dawn to steal. Amos heard only heartbeat, hers or beast's he couldn't tell. She straightened, faced him with that uncanny accuracy. "Gray here'll pull more than orchard rose," she said. "He'll show you how to pace the ground." No sermon, only statement. Amos nodded, unable to craft reply that wouldn't fall shorter than truth. Sun-crested ridge, striking tin roof, flashing ring on Clara's hand like a new coin. Amos realized the mule was no longer the only asset added to his account. Something invisible but weighty sat beside ledger lines, a calm surety that blindness could see value he'd missed. The day called, chores queued, yet Amos lingered, watching Clara guide Mule toward the shed, each step mapping territory neither of them had owned alone before this dawn. If a mule exchange for vows sparks your curiosity, tap like, hitch subscribe, and tell in the comments what you think she'll teach him by sunrise. Evening's first crow slid past the ridge, black wings chalking silence across a lavender sky. Amos hitched the gray mule, now christened Solace by Clara's soft murmur, to the rusted orchard plow. Metal teeth groaned like bones waking after a long grave. Clara stood at the far row, palm grazing each peach trunk, naming them by bark texture as though greeting shy neighbors. Her cane rested across her shoulders. She moved by counting steps, by breeze on skin, by the faint perfume of sap rising for dusk. Amos clucked and the mule leaned, shoulder muscle folding earth into ribbons 2 feet deep. Dust rose, but not enough to choke. Recent rains had softened the crust exactly 9 inches, the measure Clara had guessed by towing soil that afternoon. Amos glanced toward her. She seemed to feel each furrow forming, head turning slightly with each plunge of blade. When Solace reached her, she laid a hand on the worn leather collar, whispering a note so low Amos caught only rhythm, not words. Mule stopped, breathing even, then stepped sideways, lining for the next cut without Amos's pull. Row by row, sunset melted into indigo. Amos's arms burned. Still, he pressed on until full acre lay combed. Clara fetched bucket water, dipped rag, wiped sweat from his neck in one slow pass. Nothing suggestive, yet his nerves sparked brighter than noon. She turned, poured the rest at the base of the youngest tree. Water hissed, roots drinking fast. Lanterns lit front room. Supper rose, wood smoke and bean broth. Clara stirred pot, counting turns. She listened for Amos's chair scrape, then set a spoon to his bowl's rim exactly where his hand would find it. Silent choreography that startled him with its gentleness. They ate without talk. Spoons and crackling hearth spoke enough. When dishes cooled, Clara reached into her travel chest and produced a battered concertina, bellows patched with waxed thread. She sat by open door. Night insects tuned themselves. Her fingers found keys through memory. A low chord breathed, then a melody unfolded. Steady, yearning, vast. Amos sat on threshold, moon painting sawdust silver in his hair. The tune wandered, circled, settled into hush. As last note faded, she closed the instrument, hands resting atop like folded wings. He cleared his throat, sound too loud in the gentle dark. "I never knew music could sit a man down without rope," he said. Clara smiled, face turned to where his voice hung. "True songs choose their own seats." No more. Stillness returned. Sometime after midnight, coyotes cut the quiet, yipping nearer than usual. Amos checked rifle, walked the perimeter. Solace stamped once, ears fanning west. Clara's window shutter creaked open. She spoke low. 2 shapes by river bend. Blind eyes looked through darkness he couldn't pierce. He walked that direction, found boot prints, not paw. Drifters had trailed scent of orchard and mule, but veered off when they saw lantern sweep. Clara had sensed what sighted guards missed. Dawn cracked pale gold. Amos found Clara already at the saddle rail, fingers on Solace's mane, humming last night's refrain. She motioned him closer. "Today he pulls the water sled," she said. "Northfield first. Peach is thirsty." He nodded, still marveling how she mapped ranch topography inside silence. They worked until sun burned white. Water lines glistened behind sled runners. Trees straightened leaves like prayer flags. At noon, Clara felt along a split rail, found a nail head, pressed thumb. "Fence rots here," she said. "Need cedar splice." Amos pried the board, wood cracked halfway, not visible unless stared at. She smiled, hearing surprise in his breath. Wind carries story through grain. Heat shimmered. They broke for cornbread and cold well water under porch shade. A grasshopper landed on Clara's sleeve. She coaxed it onto finger, sensing its weight, then set it free. Amos watched the insect spring skyward, wondering whether freedom always required letting go first. Late light angled long when thunder grumbled behind southern hills. Amos hurried tack to shed. Clara, cane tapping, collected wash, pinning cloth inside instead of out where storm would slap it. First drops hit tin like small stones. Wind whipped orchard, driving dust ghosts down furrows. Amos barred shutters. In the murk, Clara reached, found his wrist, steadying him rather than seeking steadiness. They waited while rain hammered roof. Solace brayed once then quieted, trusting walls she built in morning. When storm passed, moon slid from torn clouds, draping silver over drenched earth. The orchard glowed. Each leaf held jewel beads. Amos exhaled, chest unknotted. Clara turned, unlatched the front door with practiced grace, but before stepping inside, she faced him, head tipped as if examining a picture only fingers could feel. "Tonight," she said, quiet but firm, "the wagon's roof leaks. I'll take the bet if you'll share the quiet." No suggestion, no coy smile, just invitation shaped like equality. Amos swallowed thunder, still caught in his throat, then nodded. Inside, lamplight painted wood warm. She untied scarf, hair waterfalling over shoulders. He turned down blanket, heart drumming orchard rose into rib beams. She sat on mattress edge, hands folded. "Light out?" she asked. He pinched flame. Darkness settled soft. He lay beside her atop cover, inches apart. Outside, solace rustled hay. Inside, breath met breath, slow and sure. No bolt, no trade, only dawn's promise carried into night. If the hush between raindrops and breath made you lean closer, tap like, hitch, subscribe, and share which moment guided you. The blind tune on an old concertina, the fence she heard before it cracked, or the door left open to storm-cooled night. Say go 3 for the next chapter. Sun teased the horizon before either of them stirred. Amos woke first, surprised to find he'd slept, really slept, despite a mattress that had once felt like hardwood. The steady draw of Clara's breath shaped the dark, rhythm beside him as reliable as Solace's hoofbeat. She lay on her back, face tilted toward a window she could not see. Dawn blush crept across her cheeks. He eased outside, boots soft against floorboards. Storm runoff pooled at the orchard's edge, the world smelling scrubbed and new. The mule nickered, impatient for harness. Amos rubbed its jaw, whispering thanks for how it carried more than plow traces now. Inside, Clara folded blankets with military corners. She touched the headboard, map of yesterday's storm tattooed in cool knots, then ran fingertips along the floor until they located his discarded work shirt. She lifted it, inhaled cedar and sweat as though reading a diary. Breakfast came simple. Leftover cornbread fried crisp in lard, coffee black enough to reflect the next step if one peered close. Clara patted the bench across from her. Amos sat. "Storm filled the old creek bed," she said. "We could dig a catch pond behind the barn. Keep every drop." He frowned, imagining shovels and weeks of labor. She tapped her cane on the plank. "Soil's soft now. 2 days' work if Solace hauls." He swallowed the last bite, nodded. Her certainty left little room for doubt. They set to it. Amos with spade and pick, Clara directing by sound. 2 more paces south, you struck shale. Her accuracy eerie yet flawless. The mule dragged scoops of sodden clay. Water seeped in behind each stroke, lining the hole like quicksilver. By late afternoon, a shallow pond mirrored sky, orchard, and 2 figures muddy to the knees. They rested on the dam wall. Clara cupped water, letting it drip through fingers. "A blind woman loves sound," she said. "Water against earth is my favorite hymn." Amos studied her profile. Sweat, clay flecks, loose strands of hair glinting copper. "I didn't marry for hymns," he murmured, then regretted bluntness. She smiled anyway. "I know, but maybe hymns came with the mule." Hoofbeats approached. Sheriff Keating again, dust trenching behind his gelding. He tipped his hat, delivering a letter bearing the seal of Barton and Loans. Amos read aloud. "Final attempt to seize orchards west of his for unpaid seed credit." Clara's brow furrowed. "Your line meets theirs at Dry Willow Gully?" He nodded. She rose. "Then we water our side till the boundary blooms. Bankers hate green they can't tax." She planned aloud that evening. Use the pond overflow, trench channels downgrade, root cuttings between rows. Amos listened, mind clacking like rail spikes. She paused mid-plot, turning face toward him, though eyes looked beyond. "I feel you nod, but what do you fear?" He exhaled, losing what's finally filling. Her hand found his forearm, squeezed firm. "Water spreads, but it doesn't vanish, just changes shape." That night, no question about separate quarters. They lay beneath open window, wind carrying peach blossom, scent newly born. She placed his hand on the amber bead of her bracelet. "It's warm from your skin," he whispered. She answered, It's warm because it remembers tree sap. The distance between them evaporated like rain on stove iron. Morning delivered a sky clean as bleached bone. They trenched until shoulders flamed. Each blade stab echoed, yet Clara's cane measured slope by tapping the ditch's edge so water would fall true. When her palms blistered, Amos wrapped them in linen strips soaked with honeysalve. She flexed fingers, winced once, then swung again. Neighbors rode up, raining short at the pond's gleam. "Rain pool'll breed skeeters," one warned. Clara faced the speaker, not flinching. "Fish eat skeeters," she answered. "Bring fingerlings at dusk. We'll trade 3 bushels of winter squash." Bargains struck without coin, respect settling like seed. By week's end, water lapped every trench, orchard leaves stiff with new vigor. Barton's land beyond the gully lay gray, cracks mapping thirst. The banker arrived in a buggy, frown carved deep. He dismounted, boots sinking in moist soil on Amos's side, powdered dust on his. He sniffed the air. Sap, promise, defiance. "This flow encroaches," he argued. Clara stepped forward, cane planting firm. "Boundary holds," she said, toe tapping a stake hammer dead center of the gully. Banker glared. "Your woman speak for you?" Amos met the man's gaze. "She speaks for the trees and they pay better than you." Laughter from the gathered neighbors toppled intimidation. Banker retreated, buggy wheels spinning grit as dry as his contract. Evening breeze set branches swaying. Tiny peaches winked along limbs like early red lanterns. Amos and Clara strolled between rows, Solace trailing loose lead. She reached, found his calloused fingers, threaded them through hers. "Mule was worth the vow," she said, "but sunrise keeps proving you're worth the mule." His answer was a kiss tasting of orchard wind and something he'd never suspected hunger for, certainty. Under twilight, pond reflected first stars. Water against earth, him upon him. And for the first time since his father planted the first sapling, Amos believed the orchard might outlive them both. High summer pressed Powder Ridge like a branding iron, but the new pond kept its mirrored calm. Trout fingerlings, payment from neighbors, dimpled the surface at dawn, snapping skeeters before they woke. Peach trees set heavy, limbs bowing under blushing globes not yet ripe. Amos propped branches with cut juniper poles, watching wealth swell in slow motion. Clara walked each row at sunrise, cane tucked through belt, fingertips reading fruit the way some folk read tea leaves. Where she felt too much weight, she tied calico scraps to call Amos later. She never missed. He teased that her hands had hidden eyes. She laughed, low, husky, replying that the orchard spoke louder than most men. Word of the thriving blind woman's grove rode fence lines faster than telegram. Drifters stopped asking direction to silver loads and started begging for buckets. Clara traded peaches still green for seed potatoes, chickens, fresh nails, barter stacking like cordwood. Amos kept count, but soon let ledgers rest. Trade balanced itself when respect set the scale. Not everyone admired. One noon, dust columns announced Caleb Rusk, foreman of Barton's failing spread. He rode with 2 ranch hands and an empty water wagon. Stopping outside the gate, he tipped hat with more sneer than courtesy. Eyes lingered on Clara's broad silhouette as she stood by the fence rail, sunlight tracing her outline bold. "Evening, ma'am," he drawled. "Barton says your ditch is starving his creek. Offers good coin for half your pond." Amos stepped forward, shovel still in hand. "Rain filled it. Work keeps it. No sale." Caleb spat. "Blind lady can't even see your profits. Might be she'd like shiny dollars better than sap." Clara's head tilted, like she'd heard an off-key note. "Sir," she said, voice steady as pond water, "I smell dried sweat and old whiskey on your coat. Coin won't polish that." Rusk flushed, kicked horse flank. "Last ask, pond or trouble?" Amos leveled shovel blade. Solace brayed from corral, stomp echoing. Rusk's men eyed the mule's shoulders, thicker than some bulls, and thought again of trouble. Caleb cursed, turned wagon south, dust curling behind wheels. Clara listened until hush returned, then brushed Amos's sleeve. "Threats are empty barrels. They make noise but hold nothing." That night, under lantern glow, she opened an oiled packet. Papery peach leaves, ground fine with honey and mint. Tea for nerves, she said, handing him a steaming tin cup. He tasted summer and cool shade in one sip, felt tension slide off bones. Later, in lamp shadow, he traced the curve of her shoulder where sunburn freckled brown. She leaned in to touch. No locks needed now. Orchard walls us better than wood ever did. Smoke without flame. 2 nights later, coyotes yipped frantic, not hunting song but warning. Amos grabbed rifle. Clara's hand found his belt, following. At Pond Dam, a trickle breached, water leaking through fresh, shoveled cut. Footprints led to darkness toward Barton Land. By lantern, Amos packed clay into gash. Clara counted strokes, handing stones to weigh the patch. Solace braced downhill, mule breath steaming in moon, ready if dam slipped. It held. Dawn revealed boot tracks clear as ink. Hawthorne, neighbor judge, rode out, studied prints. Caleb wears square heels, he muttered, spitting dust. That afternoon, sheriff served rusk papers. Vandalism of waterworks, serious under drought law. Barton disowned him, fearing full suit. Pond stayed full. Creek still trickled to Barton Fields. Nature proved bigger than sabotage. Clara spent evening playing concertina on porch. Notes drifted across pond, bounced from water to tree trunks, echoing like more women hidden among leaves. Amos watched bats flick above fish rings, wondered if music taught wings how to turn. Fruit that needs no eyes. August ended with a scent like syrup spilled on hot iron. Peaches burst golden red, fuzz catching sun. Pickers, neighbors, drifters paid in jam, worked ladders while Clara sorted baskets by pressure and aroma. She set aside bruised ones for boiling, perfect ones for town market. Amos hauled wagon to Main Street. Fruit sold out before noon, townspeople curious to taste blind-grown sweetness. One customer, schoolmarm Miss Ellery, complimented flavor. "What's your secret?" Amos grinned. "Tree roots drink music." She laughed, not knowing he meant it. First Prophet filled a small lockbox. Amos brought it to Clara by lamplight, rattling coin. "Your share," he said. She measured weight, then pushed it back. "Plant more roots. Coin tastes of dust." He understood. Reinvest in saplings, not whiskey or show. That night, lying side by side, she traced his cheekbones like discovering mountain ridges on a map. "I don't see your face," she whispered, "but I know when you smile, air lifts." He kissed her palm, knowing orchard wind had finally less grit than gratitude. Letter of shadows, answer in peach. Early September delivered a letter sealed black. Clara's cousin warning that her late husband's brother was riding west, claiming dowry rights to mule and wagon, and by law to any assets she'd gained while needing male guidance. His reputation tasted sour. Gambler, fists like sledges. Amos folded letter slow. Clara's brow stayed smooth. "Roots hold, storms pass," she murmured, yet Cain tapped floor in thought. They spent dusk reinforcing corral gates, filing mule shoes sharp. Amos cleaned rifle. Clara brewed darker tea. Under Pond's reflected moon, he promised, "This land learned to breathe with your steps. No man seals that breath." She nodded, laying her cane across threshold like pen ready to write ending. If one cut in a dam or one letter of greed tightens your chest, tap like, hitch subscribe, and tell what you'd guard first. Pond, peaches, or the woman who hears trees grow. Say go 5 for the final clash and quiet harvest. Dawn rolled thin and gray. Amos saddled Solace before coffee cooled, head bent to morning wind tasting of travel and threat. Clara knelt at the dam's edge, palm skimming pond skin as if reading future ripples. She rose, cane tapping one word into earth. Ready. By midday, a rider cleaved the sage horizon. Big man, coat flapping like a black flag. Gideon Vale, brother-in-law by dust and law. Gambler eyes glittering beneath a derby too fine for this land. He rode straight to the orchard gate, stopping where trench water glimmered bright against his horse's fetlocks. "Widow," he called, voice greased, "I've come for the mule and whatever gold you've wrung from these trees." His gaze grazed Clara's figure, lingered on ripe fruit, on pond shimmer, on a blind woman whom rumor painted easy prey. Clara stepped forward, cane lightly touching rail. Mule chooses his own ground. Gold hangs still on branches. She turned her face, sightless yet unwavering, toward Gideon's breath. Leave with words, not wait. Gideon laughed, swung from saddle, boots punching dust. Law's on my side, sister. Dowry belongs to husband's blood. His hand closed on her upper arm, rough, claiming. Before Amos could close the gap, Clara pivoted, cane tip cracking Gideon's knuckle. Surprise flared, grip loosened. She slipped free. Gideon shoved her hard. She stumbled, back striking a peach trunk. Branches shook, fruit spattering grass. He reached for revolver, leather creaking. Amos raised rifle, one-chambered click, solace braid pawing earth. But it was Clara who spoke, voice iron flat. Touch trigger, you die thirsty. Wind stilled. Gideon's eyes flicked to pond. Lifeline for miles. Rifle, mule, orchard all ringed him. Silent jury. Sheriff Keating appeared atop the ridge, deputies in shadow. Hawthorne the judge rode beside, having smelled trouble the night Gideon took the west road. Legal papers rustled. Clara's marriage fully witnessed. Dowry law null when widow re-wed. Gideon's face drained. He spat, holstered iron, stepped backward, but heel caught slick peach. He fell, coat ripping on stump. Solace trotted closer, massive head lowering until gambler eyes met Mule calm. Gideon scrabbled up, dust-streaking collar, mounted and wheeled out, chased by the sheriff's promise of warrants if he crossed fence line again. Silence cracked only by distant thunder. Clara exhaled long, shoulders unclenching. She knelt, lifting bruised peach, fingers tracing rupture. Even bruised fruit feeds, she murmured, offering it to Amos. He bit into sun-warm flesh. Sweetness leaked down wrist, victory small, but fierce. First bite of harvest days shortened, color deepened. They picked peaches by moonlight to meet town demand. Barrels rolled to depot, silver dollars stacked in lockbox. Amos counted once, then laughed, closing lid. Money finally a tool, not choke. Clara boiled jam, scent threading every rafter. On the porch, she played concertina while Amos packed crates, music guiding hands faster than sight ever could. Neighbors came with jars, leaving piglets, seed wheat, new roof shingles. At season's end, they held a root feast. Long tables between rows, lanterns blooming like low stars. Clara sat at table, head beside empty chair for anyone wandering hungry. Amos carved smoked mule deer. Children darted beneath trestles, chasing lightning bugs. Hawthorne gave short speech. Water turned rivals, fruit turned strangers, song turned wind. Glasses raised. Clara rose. Night hush fell. She laid concertina aside, cane steady in crook of elbow. Blindness is only a kind of weather, she said. It passes when others lend their sky. She reached for Amos. He took her hand, ring glinting reflected fire. Applause rustled like leaves. No one noticed door bolts anymore. House stood open, pond shimmered under half moon. Mule dozed near fence, and root tips curled deeper with every heartbeat. Coda under quiet stars. Later, when fires dimmed and guests rode home, Amos and Clara walked the rows. She paused at each trunk, palms blessing bark. Peaches gone, but branches still whispered promises. Next blossom, next rain. At the pond, trout cut silver arcs beneath reflected constellations. Amos wrapped arms around her from behind. Her head rested against his chest. The orchard breathes, he whispered, because you listened first. She smiled, because you believed the hush. They stood until dew-soaked hems, until dawn bled pale rose above ridge, until solace snorted gentle reminder of new chores waiting. Love had no ceremony left to prove, only seasons to keep. If this journey, from a mule-priced vow to roots that outlived shadows, stirred even one quiet note inside you, tap like, hitch, subscribe, and share below. Was it the cane against greed, the pond that saved trees, or the taste of bruised peach that fed you most? Your words keep the orchard singing for every traveler who still thinks drought is the last word.